Agent Tasha Williams sat at her desk in the downtown FBI office, staring at the thick manila folder in front of her. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the office was quieter than usual for a Thursday afternoon. Most agents had already headed home, but Tasha couldn't leave. Not yet. Not after what she'd just read. Inside that folder were 6 months of investigation reports, witness statements, and autopsy records. 3 people had died while in custody at the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. 3 black individuals, all within 8 months. The official reports called them accidents or suicides, but the FBI didn't buy it. Neither did Tasha. The first victim was a 23-year-old woman picked up for a minor traffic violation. She supposedly hung herself in her cell, but the bruising patterns didn't match. The second was a 40-year-old man arrested for public intoxication. He apparently fell down the stairs. Except there were burn marks on his body that nobody could explain. The third was a teenager, just 17, held overnight for shoplifting. The report said he had a seizure, but his family said he'd never had seizures before in his life. Tasha closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She'd been with the Bureau for 11 years now, working her way up from analyst to field agent to her current position in the Civil Rights Division. She'd seen corruption before. She'd taken down dirty cops, exposed cover-ups, and put criminals with badges behind bars. But this case felt different. This felt personal. Her supervisor, Agent Raymond Chen, knocked on her office door frame. He was a veteran agent, 15 years her senior, with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. "You've read everything?" he asked, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. Tasha nodded. Every word, every photograph, every lie they tried to tell. Raymond pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. "Then you know what we're up against. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department is a small operation, but it's tight-knit. 40 deputies total. They protect each other. We've had 3 informants go silent. Witnesses have recanted their statements. Evidence has mysteriously disappeared from storage." "They're organized," Tasha said. "More than that. They're confident. They think they're untouchable." Raymond leaned forward. "That's why we need someone on the inside, someone they won't suspect, someone who can see what's really happening in that jail." Tasha knew where this was going. She'd known the moment Raymond had first mentioned this case to her 2 weeks ago. "You want me to go undercover?" "We need you to go undercover," Raymond corrected. "You're perfect for this. You've done UC work before. You know how to handle yourself, and most importantly, you fit the profile of their victims." The words hung in the air between them. Tasha understood what he meant, even though he was trying to be diplomatic about it. She was a black woman. That made her a target in Riverside County. "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. Raymond opened his own folder and spread several documents across her desk. "We create a cover identity for you, someone with a minor warrant, nothing serious. You get arrested, processed, and held overnight. We'll have a tactical team positioned within a 2-mile radius at all times. You'll be wearing a subcutaneous transmitter, surgically implanted right here." He pointed to a spot beneath his collarbone. "It's new technology, transmits audio and GPS coordinates. They'd need an X-ray to find it, and there's no reason for them to X-ray you." Tasha picked up one of the documents. It was a fake arrest warrant for someone named Keisha Brown, failure to appear for a traffic ticket. "How long would I be in there?" 24 hours maximum. "We extract you the next morning during shift change. By then, you'll have seen enough, heard enough, recorded enough to build a case." "And if something goes wrong?" Tasha asked, though she already knew there was no good answer to that question. Raymond's expression darkened. "If something goes wrong, the tactical team breaches immediately. But Tasha, I need you to understand the risk here. These officers have already killed 3 times that we know of. They're not just corrupt, they're dangerous. If they suspect for even a second that you're not who you claim to be..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Tasha stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere out there, 3 families were grieving. 3 mothers had lost their children, and nobody had been held accountable. She thought about her own mother, who'd raised her alone in a neighborhood where trust between the community and police had broken down decades ago. Tasha had joined the FBI because she believed in justice. Real justice, not the kind that looked the other way when the criminals wore badges. When would this happen? She asked, still looking out the window. We'd need 2 weeks to prep. Build your cover, set up surveillance, brief the tactical team. We're looking at early next month. Tasha turned back to face him. What about backup? What if they move me to a location outside the transmitter's range? The device has a 5-mile range, and the jail is only 3 miles from our staging point. If they transport you anywhere, we'll follow. We'll have aerial surveillance, multiple ground units, and direct communication with the local FBI field office. Raymond paused. But I won't lie to you. There's always risk in UC work, and this assignment has more risk than most. She walked back to her desk and sat down, pulling the folder closer. She flipped through the photos of the 3 victims again. Each face told a story. Each face reminded her why she'd taken this job in the first place. I'll do it, she said quietly. Raymond studied her for a long moment. You're sure? You can say no, Tasha. Nobody would think less of you. This isn't an order, it's a request. A dangerous one. I'm sure. She looked up at him. Those 3 people deserve justice. Their families deserve answers, and we need to stop these officers before they kill someone else. Raymond nodded slowly. Okay. Then we start prep tomorrow morning. 0600. We'll begin with your cover identity, then move on to the technical equipment, emergency protocols, and scenario training. As he stood to leave, Tasha stopped him. Raymond, have we identified which officers are involved? He turned back, his hand on the doorknob. We have suspicions. There's a deputy named Dawson who was on duty for all 3 deaths. Another named Pike who seems to be his partner. But we don't know how deep it goes. Could be just them. Could be a dozen officers. Could be the whole department. That's what you're going to find out. After he left, Tasha sat alone in her office for another hour. She reviewed every detail of the case, memorizing names, dates, and facts. She studied the layout of the Riverside County Jail, noting the locations of cameras, the blind spots, the areas where the 3 victims had died. She thought about the surgery she'd need to have the transmitter implanted. She thought about walking into that jail, knowing what had happened there, knowing that she might not walk out. She thought about her mother, who she'd have to lie to about where she was going and what she was doing. But mostly, she thought about those 3 faces in the photographs. 3 people who'd been alive and then weren't. 3 people who'd been someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's parent or sibling or friend. Tasha had been an agent long enough to know that not every case ended with justice. Sometimes the bad guys got away with it. Sometimes the evidence wasn't enough. Sometimes witnesses disappeared, and prosecutors declined to file charges, and juries refused to convict. But sometimes if you were brave enough and smart enough and just a little bit lucky, you could make a difference. You could stop the bad guys. You could get justice for people who couldn't get it for themselves. As she finally packed up her things and headed home, Tasha made herself a promise. She would get justice for those 3 victims, no matter what it took, no matter how dangerous it got. She would walk into that jail, collect the evidence, and bring those officers down. She just had to survive long enough to do it. 2 weeks had passed in a blur of preparation and planning. Tasha had undergone the surgery to implant the transmitter, spent hours studying her cover identity, and rehearsed her role until it felt natural. Now, standing on a cold street corner in Riverside County at 2 a.m, she was no longer FBI agent Tasha Williams. She was Keisha Brown, a woman down on her luck with nowhere to go. The transformation was complete. She wore dirty clothes that smelled of the streets, her hair was unwashed and pulled back, and she'd applied makeup to make herself look exhausted and strung out. A small backpack contained her only possessions, the kind of random items someone living rough would carry. Old receipts, a broken phone, some spare change, and a water bottle. She'd been on these streets for 3 days now, establishing her presence. The local homeless community had accepted her. She'd slept in doorways and under bridges, She'd eaten at the soup kitchen. She'd become invisible, just another person society had forgotten. The tactical team was positioned nearby, listening to every sound through the transmitter. Agent Chen was in a surveillance van 8 blocks away, monitoring her location on a screen. Backup units were scattered throughout the area, ready to move at a moment's notice. But to anyone watching, Tasha was completely alone. Headlights appeared at the end of the street. A patrol car moving slowly, spotlight scanning the sidewalks and alleys. Tasha's heart rate picked up, but she forced herself to stay calm. This was it. This was what she'd been waiting for. She huddled deeper into the doorway of an abandoned building, making herself small. The patrol car slowed as it approached. Through partially closed eyes, she watched 2 deputies climb out. Both were white, both built like former football players. Their badges caught the streetlight. "Hey," one of them called out, shining his flashlight directly in her face. "You got ID?" Tasha squinted against the light, playing her role. "I'm not doing nothing wrong," she mumbled, making her words slurred. "Just trying to sleep." "I asked if you got ID," the officer repeated, moving closer. His name tag read Dawson. Tasha's breath caught. This was him. The deputy who'd been on duty for all 3 deaths. His partner moved to flank her on the other side. His name tag said Pike, both of them. Both primary suspects, on her first night. "Lost it," Tasha said, digging through her backpack with shaking hands. She wasn't faking the trembling anymore. "Got robbed last week." "Took everything. What's your name?" Pike asked, his voice cold. Keisha Brown." Dawson pulled out his radio and called it in. Tasha waited, knowing exactly what would happen next. They'd run her name, find the outstanding warrant for failure to appear, and take her in. Everything was going according to plan, except plans never survived contact with reality. Well, Dawson said after a minute, a smile spreading across his face. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Looks like you've got a warrant, Keisha. Failure to appear, that means you're coming with us." "Please," Tasha said, injecting real fear into her voice. "It's just a traffic ticket. I'll pay it. I promise I'll pay it. Too late for that." Pike grabbed her arm, roughly yanking her to her feet. He spun her around and slammed her against the wall. "Hands behind your back." The handcuffs clicked on so tight they immediately cut into her wrists. Tasha bit back a gasp of pain. She needed to stay in character. Needed to keep recording everything. As they walked her to the patrol car, she heard Pike say something that made her blood run cold. "Think she's a candidate?" he asked Dawson quietly. Dawson looked her over like she was livestock. "Maybe. Depends on how much trouble she gives us." "A candidate for what?" Tasha's mind raced, but she kept her expression blank and scared. They shoved her into the back of the patrol car without bothering to protect her head. She hit the seat hard, her shoulder slamming against the door. The car smelled of vomit and disinfectant. As they drove toward the station, Tasha listened carefully to their conversation. They didn't seem concerned about her hearing them. Why would they be? She was just another street person, another nobody who'd disappear without anyone caring. "Did you hear Bradley's retiring?" Pike said. "About time. Old man can barely walk his beat anymore. Means we'll need someone new for the night shift rotation." "Rodriguez is interested." "Rodriguez talks too much. We need someone who knows how to keep their mouth shut." They kept talking, but nothing specific. Nothing incriminating. Just 2 cops discussing work stuff. But there was something underneath it. Something dark that Tasha couldn't quite identify yet. The Riverside County Sheriff's Station was a squat brick building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and hadn't been updated since. They pulled around to the back entrance and hauled Tasha out of the car. Inside, the processing area was exactly as she'd studied in the blueprints. Long desk holding cells to the left, corridor leading to the main jail to the right. But what she hadn't expected was the smell. Sweat and fear and something else. Something wrong. The officer at the processing desk was a woman in her 50s with hard eyes. She barely looked at Tasha as Pike rattled off the information. Keisha Brown. Failure to appear. Outstanding warrant. Any priors? Running it now. Dawson was at a computer terminal. Nothing. First offense. Lucky you, the processing officer said to Tasha, though her tone suggested she didn't think Tasha was lucky at all. Empty your pockets. Tasha turned out her pockets, placing the few items on the desk. Change. A bus transfer from 3 days ago, a piece of gum. The backpack too. They went through her belongings piece by piece, finding nothing suspicious because there was nothing to find. Everything had been carefully curated to match her cover story. "She's clean," Pike said. "Put her in holding three, holding three." Tasha's pulse jumped. That was one of the areas where cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned during the previous incidents, but she couldn't ask questions, couldn't show she knew anything about the layout. They walked her down a corridor past several other cells. She caught glimpses of other detainees. A man sleeping on a bench, a woman crying quietly in a corner. All people of color, all looking terrified. The cell they put her in was small, maybe 8 by 10 feet, with a concrete bench and a toilet with no seat. The door clanged shut behind her with a sound that echoed in her bones. "Someone will process you in the morning," Dawson said through the bars. "Until then, you might want to get some sleep," he paused. "It might be your last chance." Then they walked away, their boots echoing on the concrete floor, laughing about something she couldn't hear. Tasha sat down on the bench and took stock of her situation. She was in. The transmitter was working. The tactical team knew exactly where she was. She just needed to observe, to listen, to gather evidence. Hours passed. She could hear sounds from other parts of the jail. Doors slamming. Voices raised in anger. Someone screaming, then sudden silence. Every sound made her muscles tense. Around 4 in the morning, she heard footsteps approaching. Multiple sets. She stood up, positioning herself in the corner of the cell where she'd have the best view in defensive position. Dawson appeared at the cell door. With him were Pike and 2 other deputies she hadn't seen before. All of them had their body cameras turned off. She could see the small lights that should have been glowing red were dark. "How you doing, Keisha?" Dawson asked, his voice friendly in a way that was more threatening than if he'd yelled. "Fine," she said quietly. "When can I make my phone call?" "Phone call?" Pike laughed. "Who you gonna call?" "You got no one." We checked. No family in the system. No known associates. No emergency contacts. You're alone. They'd done their homework on her cover identity. Of course they had. They were predators, and predators knew how to identify vulnerable prey. "I still got rights," Tasha said, making her voice shake. "Rights," one of the other deputies repeated, like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. "You hear that? She thinks she's got rights." Dawson unlocked the cell door. "Step out, Keisha. We need to ask you some questions." "Here's fine," Tasha said, not moving. "Ask me here." That wasn't a request. 4 deputies against 1 woman in handcuffs. Tasha knew she couldn't resist without blowing her cover. She stepped out of the cell, every nerve in her body screaming danger. They walked her down the corridor, away from the main processing area, away from any cameras that might still be working, into a section of the jail that wasn't on any official map. "Where are we going?" Tasha asked. "Somewhere we can talk privately," Pike said. "Don't worry. We just want to get to know you better." The corridor ended at a heavy metal door. Dawson pulled out a key and opened it. Stone steps led down into darkness. A basement. The jail had a basement that wasn't in any of the official documents. "Down," Dawson ordered. Tasha's training warred with her instinct. Her training said maintain cover. Keep gathering evidence, trust the tactical team. Her instinct said run, fight. Do anything but go down those stairs. She went down the stairs. The basement was cold and damp, with concrete walls and a floor that sloped slightly toward a drain in the center. The drain was stained dark, and Tasha didn't want to think about what had gone down it. "You see, Keisha," Dawson said, closing the door behind them, "we got a problem in this county. People like you coming in causing trouble, being where you don't belong." "I wasn't causing any trouble," Tasha protested. "You existed," Pike said flatly. "In our county. That's trouble enough." One of the other deputies, a younger guy with cold eyes, moved to block the stairs. The 4th deputy just watched, his hand resting on his belt near his weapon. "We've done this before," Dawson continued, walking in a slow circle around her. "Cleaned up our county. Made it better, safer, whiter." There it was. The confession. The motive. Everything the FBI had suspected, confirmed in Dawson's own words. The transmitter was recording every syllable. "You're going to let me go," Tasha said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Right now. Because I'm a federal agent and you're already looking at life in prison for what you've admitted." For a moment, dead silence filled the basement. Then Pike laughed. "Right, and I'm the governor. Nice try. Agent Tasha Williams, badge number 7284. FBI Civil Rights Division. She spoke clearly, knowing Agent Chen was hearing every word. You are under arrest for conspiracy, civil rights violations, and 3 counts of murder. The deputies looked at each other. For a second, doubt flickered across Pike's face. But then Dawson shook his head. She's lying, trying to scare us. No way the feds would send someone in here without backup. My backup is 2 miles away, Tasha said. And they're coming. Right now. But they didn't believe her. Or maybe they didn't care. Pike pulled out a container from behind a stack of old boxes. Even before he opened it, Tasha smelled the gasoline. Time for another accident, he said. Time seemed to slow down as Pike unscrewed the cap on the gasoline container. The smell filled the basement, sharp and overwhelming. Tasha's mind raced through every possible option. Every escape route, every defensive move she'd learned in training. But with her hands still cuffed behind her back and 4 armed deputies surrounding her, the options were limited. Last chance to tell us who you really are, Dawson said, stepping closer. Not that it matters much, but I'm curious and I told you. FBI agent Tasha Williams. She kept her voice firm, though her heart was hammering. And right now a tactical team is getting authorization to breach this facility. You've got maybe 2 minutes to stop this and surrender. Pike laughed, but it sounded forced now, less certain. You really committing to this story, huh? Respect. Most people beg by now. The other 3, Tasha said, playing for time. Every second counted. The woman who supposedly hung herself. The man who fell down the stairs. The kid who had a seizure. It was you. All of you? This is how you did it. The younger deputy near the stairs shifted uncomfortably. Dawson, what if she's not, Dawson snapped. She's a scared woman trying anything to save herself. I've seen it before. They all try something, but there was doubt in his voice now. Tasha could hear it. She pressed harder. You killed them right here, didn't you? In this basement. That's why it's not on any official plans. That's why there are no cameras. You bring them down here, you burn them, and then you stage the bodies somewhere else. Make it look like accidents. The 4th deputy, who hadn't spoken yet, took a step back. Man, I didn't sign up for this. You said we were just going to scare her. Shut up, Rodriguez, Pike snarled. We're already in this, all of us. We finish it or we all go down. Finishing it means killing a federal agent, Tasha said. That's a death penalty case. But if you stop now, if you put down that container and unlock these cuffs, you might see daylight again before you're 60. Dawson pulled out his phone. I'm calling the sheriff. If she's really FBI, he'll know. There'd be paperwork, notifications, protocol. For a moment, Tasha felt a flicker of hope. A phone call meant delay. Delay meant time for Chen and the tactical team to get there. But then she remembered the investigation file. The connections that ran deep. The evidence that suggested corruption went all the way to the top. Don't do that, the young deputy Rodriguez said. If she's FBI and you call the sheriff, he's going to throw us under the bus so fast. I said shut up. Dawson's hand moved to his weapon. The tension in the room ratcheted up instantly. 4 armed men, all of them realizing they might have made a catastrophic mistake, all of them looking for a way out that didn't end with them in prison. Everybody just calm down, Pike said, setting the gasoline container on the floor. We think this through. Logical, step by step. There's nothing to think through, Tasha said. You're already done. Everything you've said is being recorded and transmitted to an FBI surveillance team. Every threat, every admission, every word. Even if you kill me right now, it doesn't matter. They have everything. Pike's face went pale. What recording? We searched you. You got nothing. Subcutaneous transmitter, implanted under the skin. GPS and audio. Your only chance is to surrender right now. For 5 long seconds, nobody moved. The basement was silent except for the sound of water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Then Dawson made his decision. She's bluffing, has to be. No way the feds would risk an agent like this. Pike, do it. Now, before I change my mind and we figure out another way. Pike picked up the gasoline container again, his hands shaking slightly. Nothing personal, he said to Tasha. Wrong place, wrong time. He started pouring the gasoline. The liquid splashed across Tasha's clothes, soaking into the fabric, the fumes making her eyes water. She twisted away, trying to avoid it, but there was nowhere to go. The other deputies had formed a semicircle, blocking any escape route. Stop! Rodriguez shouted. This is crazy. We don't know if she's lying or not. Then you better hope she is, Dawson said coldly. Because if she's not, you're already an accessory to attempted murder of a federal agent. Your choice. Stay and help us finish this or leave and spend the rest of your life in prison. Rodriguez looked at Tasha, looked at the gasoline-soaked clothes, looked at the drain in the floor that had seen too much blood. Then he turned and ran up the stairs, coward, Pike muttered. But his hands were shaking harder now as he emptied the last of the gasoline. Tasha's clothes were drenched, the smell overwhelming. Her eyes burned from the fumes. Through it all, she forced herself to stay conscious, stay alert, keep talking. Agent Chen can hear me right now, she said, speaking clearly. This is Special Agent Tasha Williams, badge number 7284. I am in the basement of Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Deputies Dawson and Pike have doused me in gasoline and are preparing to set me on fire. I need immediate tactical intervention. Enough, Dawson said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. The metal caught the dim light from the single bulb overhead. Wait, the fourth deputy said suddenly. Her neck. Look at her neck. They all looked. Tasha's jacket had shifted when they'd been pouring the gasoline, exposing her collarbone. Where the transmitter was implanted, there was a small scar from the recent surgery. Still pink, still healing. Pike's face went white. Oh no. Oh no, it's real, the fourth deputy whispered. She's really FBI. Doesn't matter now, Dawson said, but his voice had lost its confidence. We're already past the point of no return. If we stop now, we still go to prison for assault, kidnapping, attempted murder. At least if we finish it, there's no witness. Except the recording, Pike said, the reality finally sinking in. If she's really transmitting, they have everything. We're already done. Then what do we have to lose? Dawson flicked the lighter. The flame danced in the darkness. In that moment, Tasha's training kicked in completely. She dropped to the ground, rolling toward the drain, away from the deputies. The movement made the gasoline fumes swirl, making everyone's eyes water. Dawson lunged forward, trying to touch the flame to her clothes. Tasha kicked out, connecting with his knee. He stumbled but didn't fall. Pike grabbed her from behind, trying to hold her still. Just do it, Pike yelled. Before backup gets here. The flame touched her sleeve. The gasoline ignited instantly, flames racing up her arm and across her chest. The heat was immediate and excruciating. Tasha screamed, not as an agent maintaining cover, but as a human being in agony. She rolled again, trying to smother the flames, but there was too much gasoline. The fire spread to her other arm, her torso. The pain was beyond anything she'd experienced in her life. Through the haze of pain and smoke, she saw Pike pull out his phone and start filming. Dawson just watched, his face a mask of horror at what he'd done. The fourth deputy grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, but Dawson knocked it out of his hands. Too late now. We see this through. Tasha's vision was starting to gray at the edges. The smoke was filling the basement. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The pain was everywhere. She tried to speak, to give one final statement for the recording, but her throat was too damaged. All that came out was a rasping cough. Somewhere above, she heard a crash, shouting, running footsteps. But it sounded far away, like it was happening in another world. The flames continued to burn, consuming her clothes, searing her skin. She tried to roll again, but her body wouldn't respond anymore. The basement was spinning. Through the smoke, she saw the door at the top of the stairs explode inward. Figures in tactical gear flooded down, weapons raised, voices shouting commands she couldn't quite understand. Someone was on her, smothering the flames with a heavy blanket. Hands were pulling the deputies away, slamming them against the walls, the sharp clicks of handcuffs. Agent down. We need medical, now. Clear the space. Medic to the basement. All suspects in custody. I repeat, all suspects in custody. The voices swirled around her. Tasha tried to focus, tried to stay conscious. She needed to give her statement. Needed to make sure they understood what had happened, what she'd witnessed. A face appeared above her. Agent Chen, his expression twisted with concern and rage. Stay with me, Tasha, stay with me. Medical's coming. You're going to be okay. She tried to speak, managed to whisper. Did you get it? The recording? We got everything, Chen said, his voice thick. Every word. Every action. They're done. You did it. Relief flooded through her, stronger even than the pain. She'd succeeded. The evidence was secured. The 3 victims would get justice. No one else would die in that basement, Rodriguez, she whispered. The young deputy ran, tried to stop them. We have him, Chen assured her. He surrendered upstairs. He's cooperating. Paramedics appeared, their hands gentle as they began treating her burns. Someone was cutting away what remained of her clothes. Someone else was starting an IV line. The pain medication hit her system like a wave. As consciousness started to fade, Tasha heard Dawson's voice from somewhere behind her, being dragged up the stairs. "We didn't know," he was saying. "We didn't know she was really FBI. It was a mistake. A misunderstanding." But his words were hollow. Everyone in that basement knew the truth. This wasn't a mistake. This was exactly what Dawson and Pike had intended. They'd just chosen the wrong victim this time. "You're going to be okay," Chen said again, his hand gripping hers. "You're going to make it." Tasha wanted to believe him, but as the darkness closed in, all she could think about were the 3 people who hadn't made it. The 3 people who'd been in this same basement, suffered this same fate with no backup coming, no one to save them. At least their families would finally know the truth. At least their killers would face justice. As the paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher and carried her up the stairs into the cool night air, Tasha caught a glimpse of the scene outside. FBI agents everywhere, local police cars, news vans already gathering. The whole world was about to learn what had happened in Riverside County. The last thing she saw before the ambulance doors closed was Dawson being pushed into a federal transport vehicle, his hands cuffed behind his back, his career and freedom gone forever. Then the pain medication pulled her under, and Tasha knew nothing more. The explosion that had blown open the basement door came from Agent Chen's tactical team, but the order had come from much higher up. When Rodriguez had burst out of that basement and straight into the arms of FBI agents positioned outside, screaming that they were murdering someone downstairs, every protocol went out the window. The breach authorization came through in seconds. Special Agent Chen had been listening to every word through Tasha's transmitter, his hands gripping the edge of the surveillance console so hard his knuckles were white. When he heard the gasoline being poured, when he heard Dawson flick that lighter, something inside him broke. He'd sent Tasha in there. He'd promised her family she'd be safe. He'd assured her the tactical team would be close enough. "Breach now," he'd said into his radio, his voice deadly calm despite the terror coursing through him. "All units, breach now. Agent in immediate danger. Authorization code Delta 79er. Do not wait for secondary confirmation. Go now." The tactical team had moved like they'd been shot from a cannon. They were already at the building, already positioned at entry points, already ready. When the order came, they'd gone through windows, doors, and walls simultaneously. 8 entry points, 40 agents, complete overwhelming force. The deputies inside the jail never knew what hit them. One second they were going about their night shift routine. The next they were face down on the floor with assault rifles pointed at their heads and voices shouting, "FBI, don't move!" The young deputy Rodriguez had been the key. Shaking and crying, he'd told the agents exactly where the basement was, how to access it, how many people were down there. He'd begged them to hurry, said they were going to kill her, said he tried to stop them, but he was just 1 person against 3. "She's really FBI," he'd kept saying. "She told us and we didn't believe her. Oh God, she told us." The team that breached the basement door had seen Tasha on fire, seen Pike filming it on his phone, seen Dawson standing there watching like he was observing an experiment. They'd seen the 4th deputy frozen in place, unable to help but unable to look away. "Federal agents, hands in the air, now!" The deputies had barely moved before they were tackled, weapons stripped, hands cuffed. It took less than 15 seconds to secure all 3 suspects. But those 15 seconds felt like hours to the agents smothering the flames consuming their fellow agent. Agent Jennifer Lopez, a 15-year veteran and trained emergency responder, had grabbed the fire blanket and thrown herself on top of Tasha, cutting off the oxygen feeding the flames. Another agent used the fire extinguisher the 4th deputy had tried to grab earlier. Within 30 seconds the fire was out, but the damage was done. "Medic," Lopez had screamed into her radio. "Basement level, severe burns, agent down, need immediate medical evac." Chen had taken the stairs down 3 at a time, his heart in his throat. When he saw Tasha lying on that concrete floor, her clothes burned away, her skin angry red and blistered, his training almost failed him. But he forced himself to focus, to kneel beside her, to tell her she'd done it. She'd gotten the evidence, she'd succeeded. The paramedics arrived within 2 minutes. They'd been staged 3 blocks away, waiting on standby with a full trauma team. Now they flooded into the basement with equipment and expertise, working with the smooth efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Second and third degree burns over approximately 40% of her body, the lead paramedic said, his hands moving quickly as he assessed. Starting IV line. Get me 2 large bore, lactated ringers wide open. Radio the burn unit, tell them we're coming in hot. BP is dropping, another paramedic called out. 80/50, compensating for shock and fluid loss. Push another liter. Get the pressure bag. Chen stayed beside Tasha, his hand holding hers, telling her she was going to make it. Around them, more FBI agents were processing the scene. Crime scene techs were already photographing everything. The gasoline container, the lighter, Pike's phone with the video still recording, the drain with its dark stains that would prove to contain DNA from the 3 previous victims. Every piece of evidence was being documented, cataloged, preserved. This case was going to be airtight. No procedural errors, no chain of custody issues, no technicalities for defense lawyers to exploit. Dawson was screaming as agents hauled him up the stairs. You can't do this. You need a warrant. This is a legal search and seizure. Exigent circumstances, Chen said coldly, following the stretcher carrying Tasha. Life-threatening situation requiring immediate action. Any first-year law student knows that. But please keep talking. Everything you say is being recorded and will be used against you. Pike was silent, his face gray with the realization of what he'd done. Attempted murder of a federal agent while being recorded. There was no talking his way out of this. No plea deal that would save him. His life as he knew it was over. The 4th deputy, whose name was Brandon Wilson, was cooperating immediately. I didn't know, he kept saying. I swear I didn't know they were actually going to do it. I thought they were just trying to scare her. When I saw the lighter, I tried to grab the fire extinguisher, but Dawson stopped me. You saw that, right? Your cameras saw that I tried? We saw, an agent told him. You'll have a chance to tell your story. But right now you're under arrest for assault and attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent. As Tasha was loaded into the ambulance, Chen climbed in beside her. I'm staying with her, he told the paramedics, leaving no room for argument. He pulled out his phone and called the FBI director's emergency line. At 3 a.m, this was going to wake up some very important people. Good. This is Special Agent Raymond Chen, badge number 3521. I need to report that one of our agents was set on fire during an undercover operation in Riverside County. The agent is alive but critically injured. 4 suspects in custody. We need immediate authorization for a full investigation into the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. I believe corruption goes beyond the 4 deputies we arrested tonight. Outside, the scene was chaos. News helicopters were circling overhead despite the early hour. Someone had leaked what was happening. Or maybe it was impossible to miss the massive FBI presence. Every news outlet in the region was sending crews. Agent Lopez was coordinating the wider operation. I want every deputy in this building detained and questioned, she ordered. Nobody leaves until we know who knew what. Get warrant applications prepared for the sheriff's office, his home, and his personal vehicles. Contact the county prosecutor's office and put them on notice that we're taking over this investigation. Rodriguez was sitting in the back of an FBI vehicle, giving a detailed statement. He was talking fast, words tumbling over each other as he tried to explain everything he knew. There's 6 of them, he said, the main group. Dawson and Pike are the leaders. Wilson and me were the newest. Then there's Deputy Clark and Deputy Johnson. They're not here tonight, but they're part of it. They have this thing they call county cleanup. They target people they think don't belong here. Homeless people. People of color. Anybody they decide is making the county look bad. How long has this been going on? The agent interviewing him asked. I don't know. I've only been here 8 months. But from things they've said, years. Maybe a decade or more. Rodriguez put his head in his hands. I should have reported it. I should have said something. But I was scared. And I told myself they were just talking, just blowing off steam. I didn't think they'd actually kill someone. But they did kill people, the agent said. 3 that we know of. How many more do you think there might be? Rodriguez's face went pale. I don't know. God, I don't know. But that basement, the drain, the way they knew exactly what to do. They've done this before, multiple times. Back at the hospital, Tasha was rushed into the burn unit. Chen wasn't allowed past the emergency department doors, so he paced in the waiting room. His phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated with FBI headquarters. "We need forensic accountants to go through the department's books," he said. "I want to know if there's been any unexplained deaths in this county going back 10 years. Get in touch with the state medical examiner. Any deaths in custody, any suspicious accidents, any suicides that seemed questionable. Cross-reference with demographics. I'm betting we're going to find a pattern." The surgeon came out 3 hours later, still in scrubs, looking exhausted. "Agent Williams is stable," she said. "The burns are severe, but we got to her quickly. That made all the difference. She's going to need multiple surgeries, extensive grafting, months of rehabilitation, but she's going to live." Chen felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. "Can I see her?" "She's sedated. Won't be conscious for several hours. But yes, briefly." Tasha looked small in the hospital bed, wrapped in specialized bandages, surrounded by machines monitoring every vital sign. But she was breathing. Her heart was beating. She was alive. Chen pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "You did it," he said quietly, even though she couldn't hear him. "You got them. All of them. And because of you, no one else is going to die in that basement." His phone buzzed with an incoming message. The forensic team had accessed Pike's phone. The video he'd been recording showed everything. But more importantly, they'd found other videos. 6 more videos. 6 more victims, all burned alive in that basement, all filmed like some kind of trophy collection. 6 murders, not 3. 6 families who'd been told their loved ones died accidentally. 6 lives stolen by deputies who thought their badges put them above the law. "Actually, you saved a lot more people than we thought," Chen said to unconscious Tasha. "You stopped them before they hit double digits." By dawn, the raid had expanded across the entire county. The sheriff had been arrested at his home, where agents found documents proving he'd been covering up the murders for years. Deputies Clark and Johnson were taken into custody at their homes. Records were seized from the sheriff's department. Computers, files, evidence lockers, everything. The county prosecutor was cooperating fully, clearly trying to distance himself from the scandal. The mayor was calling for federal oversight. Civil rights organizations were demanding investigations into every death in custody going back 20 years. And in the center of it all was one FBI agent who'd had the courage to walk into a corrupt sheriff's department wearing nothing but a wire and her conviction that justice mattered. When Tasha finally woke up 18 hours later, the first thing she saw was Chen asleep in the chair beside her bed. The first thing she felt was pain despite the medication, but the first thing she thought was that she'd succeeded. "Chen," she croaked, her voice barely working. He jerked awake, immediately alert. "Tasha, how are you feeling?" "Like I got set on fire by corrupt cops," she said. Then, despite everything, she smiled. "But we got them, right?" "We got them," Chen confirmed. "All of them. And 6 more victims than we knew about. Because of you, justice is finally coming to Riverside County." Tasha closed her eyes, letting that sink in. 6 more families who would finally get answers. 6 more killers who would face consequences. "Worth it," she whispered. "Maybe," Chen said. "But let's not do it again, okay? I'm too old for this kind of stress." Despite the pain, despite the long recovery ahead, Tasha laughed. They'd won. The bad guys were going to prison. And she was alive to see it happen. That was enough. 3 months had passed since that night in the basement, but for Tasha, the recovery felt like it was taking years. She'd undergone 7 surgeries so far, with at least 3 more scheduled. The skin grafts were healing slowly, leaving scars that would mark her body forever. Physical therapy was painful and exhausting. Some days she wondered if she'd ever feel normal again. But today she sat in the federal courthouse, dressed in a professional suit carefully tailored to accommodate her compression garments, ready to testify. The scars on her neck and hands were visible, but she didn't try to hide them. They were evidence just as much as the recordings and videos. The courtroom was packed. Media filled the gallery, along with family members of the 6 known victims. There were probably more victims, the FBI investigation had suggested, but these were the ones they could prove. 6 families who'd been told their loved ones died in accidents or by their own hand. 6 families who'd known something was wrong but had been powerless to prove it. Until now. The lead prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Catherine Chang, stood to begin her opening statement. Chang was a veteran prosecutor who'd built her reputation on police corruption cases. She'd taken this case personally, working 18-hour days to build an airtight prosecution. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Chang began, Over the next few weeks, you're going to hear testimony that will shock you. You're going to see evidence that will disturb you. You're going to learn about a group of law enforcement officers who betrayed their oath, who used their badges as weapons, who murdered 6 innocent people and tried to murder a 7th. She walked over to a large display board, showing photos of the 6 victims. A young woman named Crystal, picked up for a traffic violation. A man named Jerome, arrested for public intoxication. A teenager named Devin, held overnight for shoplifting. 3 more whose names Tasha had memorized during her recovery. These 6 people made mistakes, Chang continued. Small mistakes. The kind of mistakes many of us make. But they paid for those mistakes with their lives. Because they had the misfortune of being arrested in Riverside County, where a group of deputies decided they had the power to be judge, jury, and executioner. The defense table sat 4 men in suits, former deputies Dawson, Pike, Wilson, and Clark. Deputy Johnson had taken a plea deal early on, agreeing to testify against the others in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'd served as the lookout during 3 of the murders, he'd said. Didn't participate directly, but knew what was happening and said nothing. The sheriff was being tried separately. His case was so complicated that it needed its own trial. But he was looking at decades in prison just from the obstruction of justice and conspiracy charges. Dawson looked angry, his jaw clenched, his eyes hard. Pike looked defeated, staring at the table. Wilson kept glancing at the families in the gallery, then quickly looking away. Clark seemed to be trying to appear confident, but Tasha could see the fear underneath. The prosecution will prove, beyond any reasonable doubt, that these defendants operated as a murderous conspiracy, Chang said. We will show you the basement where they committed these atrocities. We will play you recordings of them discussing their crimes. We will show you videos that the defendant Pike kept as trophies. And you will hear from FBI Special Agent Tasha Williams, who nearly became their 7th victim. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecution built their case piece by methodical piece. Crime scene analysts testified about the evidence found in the basement. The drain had contained DNA from all 6 victims. The walls had blood spatter that matched their blood types. Traces of accelerant were found throughout the room. Forensic accountants revealed that the sheriff had been funneling money to the deputies as bonuses for what he called maintaining county standards. In reality, he'd been paying them to commit murder. Communications analysts showed text messages between the defendants discussing their victims using coded language. Taking out the trash meant murdering someone. County cleanup day meant they were planning another kill. The texts went back 7 years, suggesting the 6 known victims were just the tip of the iceberg. Rodriguez, the young deputy who'd tried to stop them, testified for 2 full days. He was serving 5 years in a federal prison for his role as an accessory, but his cooperation had been crucial. I knew something was wrong from my first week, he said, his voice shaking. The way they talked about certain people, the jokes they made. But I was new and I needed the job, and I told myself I was imagining things. When did you realize you weren't imagining things? Chang asked. About 3 months in, Dawson took me aside. He said I'd proven myself, that I was part of the team now. He showed me the basement. Told me what they did down there. Said if I told anyone, I'd be the one in that basement next. Rodriguez wiped his eyes. I should have reported it anyway. I should have been brave. But I wasn't. And people died because I was too scared to do the right thing. The family members in the gallery watched him with mixed expressions. Some looked angry. Some looked sympathetic. All of them looked heartbroken. When it was finally Tasha's turn to testify, the courtroom fell silent. She walked slowly to the witness stand, her movement still stiff from the healing burns. She was sworn in and took her seat, looking directly at the jury. Chang approached gently. Agent Williams, can you tell the jury about your undercover operation in Riverside County? Tasha took a breath and began to speak. She described the investigation, the decision to go undercover, the preparation and planning. She talked about her arrest, the processing, being taken to that basement. They told me exactly what they'd done, Tasha said. Deputy Dawson walked around me in a circle and explained how they'd cleaned up the county, how they'd done this before. He was proud of it. Then what happened?